Welcome to the third episode of the Ultimate VR Optimization Guide. After learning how to optimize the Unity settings and the Unity scene, in this video we are going to look at a critical part of the optimization process, analyzing the performance of your game. That's right, in this video we will have a look at some great profiling tools like the Unity Profiler, the Frame Debugger or the OVR Matrix, but you know what else is a great tool? It is of course Cognitive 3D, which can also let you better understand your game by gathering 3D spatial data about your player. You might already know that Cognitive 3D is a good friend of the channel and the sponsor of this series, so don't wait any longer, you can try the tool for free and easily add it to your project with the link you will find in the description. I also actually made a tutorial about it that showcased its main features like watching player replay, tracking the interaction on dynamic object and more, which I will also link in the description down below. But without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so to analyze the performance of the game, we have two possibilities: testing in the Unity editor or testing in the build. Of course, testing in the Unity editor gives you more information, but if you test in the build, this is where it can give you the real performance that your player will feel in the game. Now, don't worry, in this video we are going to talk about both, but let's start first with the Unity editor tool. And you guys know already about the first one, which we already talked about in the previous episode, the stat panel. So here we are on our little test project, which is actually one of the scenes for our mixed reality game, Detective VR, which you can play in the link you will find in the description down below with a super surprise discount, but let's keep that between us. Okay, now enough talking, let me click on play. There we go, the game is running, and if we go to the game window, in that we click on stat, this opens the stat panel, which is updating in real time. Now we can stop at a particular time by simply clicking on the pause button here. Okay, so you guys know already about some of the settings here, like the FPS, the frame per second, which is the current number of frames Unity is able to draw per second. The trees, which are the number of triangles Unity is processing. The batches, the total number of draw call batches Unity does. And of course this one is a bit harder to understand, but you guys might already know from the previous video that we can group draw call with static and dynamic batching to optimize the game, and that is the value that is being displayed here. So the batch are simply the number of draw call group that are being processed. And by the way, we also have some information about how many draw call were saved by batching over there on the right, which I think is pretty nice to know. Of course, there are also some things that we didn't talk about, like the CPU time for the main and render thread over there. This is basically another way to look into the performance of the game. The CPU time is the milliseconds spent to process the frame. For example, if we have a game at 72 frames per second, it means that every frame should take less than 1000 divided by 72, which is 13.88888888 milliseconds. Okay, so that's basically it on the stat panel. You can see that there is also some data about the number of object casting shadows, the skin meshes, and the animation playing. This is of course already helpful, but of course you guys know that if you really want to get the best data on your game, the king of performance analysis in Unity is not the stat panel, but the mighty Unity Profiler. So let's see how it works. To open the Profiler, we can click on these three little dots, Add tab, Profiler. There it is, the beautiful profiler is here. The first thing we can do at the top is set our target frame time by clicking here. In my case, I'm going to set it to 72 FPS. You can even add some custom number if you'd like. Then, as you can see, the profiler has different modules to display data from the CPU, rendering, memory, and more. You can remove or add module by clicking over there on the profiler modules. And in my case, I'm going to click on GPU usage to add it. Okay, here we go. Now I think our profiler is ready to collect data. Now we can make sure that the recording button over there is enabled. And if we unpause the game, there you go. As you can see, it is collecting a lot of data for us, which is awesome. Okay, so now I think we can pause to have a look at what we have here. The first thing we can notice is the different graph for each profiler module we have selected. We can see, for example, the huge amount of triangles count that increase in the rendering. You can also see what part is taking what on the graph, which you can toggle on the side here. For example, in the CPU usage, if I remove others, I can see that for some reason my script in blue are taking a huge chunk of time to process. And of course, that's something that we will have to understand why by analyzing our profiler a bit deeper. Now, one of the most important pieces of information from the profiler is one of its newest features, the highlights. You can see at the top here that at some particular moment, the profiler is warning us about something. And if we click on it, on our left, we are getting some information about the time it takes for the CPU or GPU to process the frame. And when the time exceeds your target frame rate time, this is when it will warn you that a spike happened and that something needs to be done. And then it will also tell you what to do next on the right. Now, basically, the main goal with this highlight is to know if your game is CPU or GPU bound. Now, this is something a bit more technical, but let me sum it up for you. So, this is what a usual frame looks like. Your CPU will do some calculation by having the engine code first, then your code, and then the rendering code. But then the rendering code will pass some work on the GPU to do the actual drawing. And while the GPU is doing its own calculation, the CPU will start to work on the next frame. So if you think about it, it also means that if the CPU takes more time than the GPU will have nothing to do and will have to wait for nothing. So in this case, no matter if you are optimizing your GPU by baking shadow, reducing texture and so on, it will do nothing. Because it is your CPU that needs optimization. Now, of course, on the other hand, if it is your GPU that takes more time than the CPU, it is the CPU that will have to wait, and in this case, you need to optimize the GPU. That's right. So yeah, of course, let's go back to our profiler. We now understand what is going on here, but yeah, my advice to you guys is not always to trust what's being told on the right here. I have found out that sometimes for VR, it is not always super precise, so the best way is, of course, to look directly at how your frames are looking like, which you can simply do by clicking somewhere on the CPU usage. Now, as you can see, you will have your frame timeline displayed for each frame, which can tell you what exactly is taking time to process. So there is a lot of things to say about this, which I don't have the time in this video, but if you want to learn more about it, I highly encourage you to watch this awesome talk on the Unity channel called Boosting Your Game Performance with Unity 6 Profiling Tools. Now, anyway, another way to look at the frame is using the hierarchy that you can enable here. The hierarchy will show you the hierarchy of time spent, and if we analyze what's going on by going to player loop, update, behavior update, you can see that a certain profiler test script is taking a huge chunk of time to process. And indeed, that is a script that I have added over there on my scene, which is basically instantiating 50 cubes every frame of the game, so not the best thing to do. So, of course, a good thing would be to actually remove it. Next, another thing we can look at is this GPU usage, of course. And if we click on it, we also have a hierarchy showing the time spent on each element. And looking at it, I can see that the GPU is struggling a lot with the shadow, which means that it would be great to bake the light of our game. Now, down below, we can also go to the rendering module, which will give you some more information like the draw call, batch, triangles, and more. But what I really like here is the frame debugger, which we can open by clicking on Open Frame Debugger. Now, the frame debugger is another tool by Unity, which is simply pure gold. It will give you all the steps to draw a frame for each object. In our case, we can see how the batching is working to group some object and the number of triangles for each one of them. And look at this, somebody has let a 2 million vertices sphere in the project, which is taking a lot of resources. So thanks to the frame debugger, we know why our game is struggling. I guess that you guys get the idea, but of course, there is so much more to talk about on the Unity profiler. It is a very, very wide topic, and if you guys are interested to learn more about this, I highly recommend you to also take a look at other tools, such as the memory profiler, which profile the memory, and the profiler analyzer, which is an even deeper analysis than the profiler. But now, let's answer the big question. How can you analyze your game outside of Unity when they are built? And the good news is that the most basic technique is simply to also use the profiler, but in the build, and you can actually do this by simply going to the build profile, then click on development build, and then auto connect profiler. And now, if we build, there you go. As you can see, the game is running on the build APK on my Quest headset,
but I can see the profiler data over there. That is awesome. But as you can see, not all data are available, like the GPU, and maybe you don't want to use the profiler or simply want to display the performance directly in the headset. So let's explore some other technique. So if you want to have some data on the headset, the simpler one is to simply write some code to display, for example, the FPS. And my friend Shrimp has a good 3-minute video to show you how to do this exactly. This technique, of course, works for all kinds of headset and even for non-VR game. But if you use a MetaQuest headset, there is an awesome tool for you, the MetaQuest Developer Hub. Here it is. Maybe some of you guys already know about this. Otherwise, I'm going to add a link for you guys to download it in the description. Now, you can do a lot of things with the MetaQuest Developer Hub, but my favorite one is here with the OVR Matrix tools. If you install the OVR Matrix tool on your device, and once it is installed, you should see here the Matrix HUD, which you can enable, and this will let you display all the data that you want directly in the headset. It is so good. Now you can even click on the settings here next to it and see what you want to track or not, like frame rate, memory, render scale, and more. There you go. Now, if you prefer having the data not on the headset but on your computer, you can also go to the performance analyzer and click on the play button. So here you go. This gives you a lot of places to start looking into how to optimize your VR game. Of course, there are more tools that can help you, like Perfetto, which you can enable straight from the Developer Hub to get CPU information. And also, there is RenderDoc, which on the other side is a super impressive graphics debugger that can analyze single frame directly for you. Now, I will leave more information about these two last tools in the description down below. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and that you learned something new.
And there you go, guys, all things come to an end. This is how you can analyze the performance of your VR game. Of course, there are definitely more things to learn about optimization, so if you'd like me to cover a particular subject in a future video, let me know in the comment section down below. Now, I hope that you enjoy these tutorials. They take a lot of time to make, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. A big shout out to Cognitive 3D, the sponsor of this series, so if you'd like to know more about your game and better understand your player, you can try the tool for free by registering with the link you will find in the description. Thank you for watching and see you very soon. Bye bye.